Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to the website's call. Do we have anyone who's new on the call, who's attending the website's call for the first time? You can introduce yourself to all the members here. Shahbaz, is this
Hi everyone.
yeah, we can hear you.
Hi everyone. I'm an undergrad student studying at a private university in India. I have been doing open source contributions from the past 1 year, and I'm looking forward to making open source contributions in the LIA 5 projects to up ahead. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Akshit, you've been here for a while, right? Or is this your first?
Yeah, I am here.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think we have any other newcomers. Right? So we'll get started with the meeting. So Kunal is not here, and Raj said he will join, but he hasn't yet, so we'll probably circle back on this one. So the first topic was by Akshit, which is still here. So basically, the issue is right now on our member profiles, people with huge names, they make the card size ununiform. Sure. So he was looking for a way to make it of the same size. Now, I think what he did was remove the space over here.
No, what I did is I have if the name is greater than 20 digit, so I have uh, less the size of the name. Means I have reduced the size of the name if the name is greater than 20.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so one problem with that is, like you see here, it looks not very uniform. It's very uneven. Like suddenly this is small and this is big. So anyone else who has any other views about this?
I don't think there's any other workaround though, right? Other than reducing the font size, we could either increase the size of all the cards, or there's just going to be someone's name which is going to be bigger than the others, right? So
Right. So do we like are you suggesting we go with this reducing the sizes?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough call because yeah, physics sort of gets in the way with squeezing things into the line. So yeah, you either like the part of the thing that Deborah Priya is pointing out is that there's a lack of padding on either side of the name for those that are pretty squished, and it starts to be aesthetically displeasing. And so to Aditya's point, it's like, well, right, we can make the font even smaller so we can get some padding in there so that it doesn't look like it's so squished, but it'll also look like it's a fairly small name relative to the other names. So the only other choice is to then, it's not the only other choice, like other choices are like reduce the size of the picture, or yeah, consistently make room for a second, for two lines of words in every card. And so acknowledging that that would have the effect of some of them having a fair bit more space than they do today. And it might be one of those things that you're not entirely sure what is the better of the worst decisions, like what, like which one is slightly better than the next until you were to see it. I mean, it again, so it should be just like take like about a minute to expand the height of all of them, leave them all the same font size, but expand the height. It might be worth. seeing it. So, actually, did you try that other approach, increasing the height of?
Yes, I can do one thing. I can increase the height of the tag price card.
Yeah, it might be worth just seeing what the difference is. Like which one is, like, if you do increase the height of the card, something to consider. This starts to get kind of frustrating after a while for everybody involved. Is like, well, for the most part, what you want is everything to be somewhat equidistant or have the same amount of padding, the same amount of margin. So if you consider the amount of padding between the profile picture and the top of the card, whatever that is about as much as you'd want on the bottom as well. And so that's part of the reason that the current view doesn't look quite so nice, is because there's a lack of that padding. And so yeah, and for my part, I think either way can work. The one thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that there's padding both on the sides and on the top, and that it's more or less an equal amount of padding. And we have for Bahami, the African woman that's in the lower left hand corner, and Aditya A in the upper right hand corner, and even the Aditya next to him is it's squished, and it looks squished. So and the reason that it looks squished it is, yeah, sure, in part because the font size is a little bit smaller or what have you, but what really makes it look like it hasn't been handled well is the lack of consistent padding, or much padding. It's just you don't want the lettering right next to the edge. You want to give it a little bit of padding margin.
So Akshat, you can try like having this in 2 lines itself, because this has the padding here is good enough. You try increasing the size and share it over here. Then we can probably compare.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else you have to talk about?
No. Thank you.
Right. So the next topic is private. So I basically noted these down 2 weeks back. So these are things related to the learning paths. This is not coming. So right now, there are a couple of things that I noticed. One is, suppose I click on this answer, it immediately moves to the next question. But I think it would be ideal for for us to stay on that for some time and show the user which answer you listed, because it could be that you click it by mistake and you want to change your answer, and then click on submit to go to the next question. Another thing is, like, suppose right now in question 1, I selected answer 1, but if I go back to previous, I am on question 1, but it does not highlight the option which I previously selected. That was issue number 2. Second issue is, now I'm on the same question 1. It also allows me to choose another option. Like suppose I choose answer 2. Uh, I have answered question 1 twice, and it also increased the attempted questions. So not attempted decreases, attempted increases, and yeah, so that was happening. That was a problem. Another problem was, so there were a total of 4 questions, attempted 0. So I've already crossed all my attempted, but it still allows me to choose. So on selecting question 4, it automatically, just finishes the quiz. So I think we should have a pause over there as well. Let the user decide when they want to finish the quiz. So yeah, I think that was all for now. These are certain bugs that we can address right now. Anyone has anything else to add to this?
Sounds about right to me. It's kind of hard to argue with. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that is, it's not a matter of opinion. It's more like attempted versus not attempted is being incremented inappropriately. And so um, one thing that might not be obvious to the quiz taker is that it's not multiple choice, it's single choice. But I guess they'll figure it out when they start to answer questions. And so that's probably fine. I mean, it doesn't, it's fine. Nice. And so right now, are these set up under the context of there being kind of a quiz per chapter? So multiple quizzes per course?
I think right now it's just 1 quiz per course.
Okay.
So it's at the end of the chapter of conclusion, you get the option to take the quiz.
Oh, I see. Okay. Cool. Yeah, there was a fair bit of work put into this. I hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, but like once we have the layout ready, like all this works properly, we can probably just add it at the end of each chapter.
Yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
want it that way.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. There might be, we might want to introduce a color other than just green. Green everywhere. It might be that the attempted and not attempted, or completed versus remaining, because like attempted, not attempted, kind of, but is maybe those don't necessarily have to be green because they're not really buttons to push. You start to confuse the user on what's a button versus what's just informational. And so some other color for informational information would be good, like gray. Or the other thing too,
What other colors? Okay, yeah. Another thing is we should. Okay, we should probably have some interact. Like when I was clicking the next, it was moving to the next person, but the page wasn't showing anything. So we should probably move it to the top.
like a stepper, like to show how many questions you have and how many you've completed, like that.
Yeah, or we could also have like usually the exams which I give, what they have is instead of previous and next only, some of them they have, suppose I have 4 questions, they have the 4 questions as buttons on top, so you can just navigate from one. But that's not necessary. Like it shows which ones are attempted, which are not attempted, so you can go to the unattempted ones. instead of just showing two attempted, two not attempted, it basically has an indication of which questions are attempted and which are not attempted.
Gotcha. Yep, makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, take quiz is only at the end of the conclusion, like at the end of the entire. Any other things anyone else has to add to this?
And Nicola just had a quick one in the chat, wondering whether you might be opening up issues, GitHub issues on those behaviors. Oh, there's a clock, huh?
Yeah, I was planning to open like individual issues for each of these features, like maybe one for highlighting it when you return to it or something like that.
Yeah, individual issues would be good. I think previously, I forgot the name of the person who was working on it, but I doubt if he's still working on this.
Nikhil Sharma is
Yeah, Nikhil Sharma. I doubt if he's still working on it. So if we could have individual open issues for each of the suggestions that you had, maybe we can have interaction from other community members.
yeah. And I think Nikhil was doing something with the design. Like these are all interactivity. He was, I think, working on the design of changes in design. But we probably have to wait before.
I'm not sure if he had any design. As far as I remember, this is the last update that he had, and the backend part was still left out. So yeah, this was the last update that we had. And if we want any updates to the UI, like as the sessions are on point, we could have the UI updated totally, so that when the backend part is ready, just integrating the API would do the work.
So I'll go after call with issues for this. Anything else? Any other suggestions from anyone else? Good. So moving on, we recently had a couple of updates to our blog page. So I'll just quickly show. So we added in this collapsible. Shubhdeep was working on this. So when you land on the blog page, it's open by default, and when you visit any particular category, it's closed, and you can open it on your own. And another update was we added this highlight to the current tag that we're on. We are in community, it highlights community. And it's also the same with tags. If you're in news, it highlights news. I think there was also an increase in the number of posts to 6, but I just noticed that that PR only made changes to the category posts, like it increased the category maximum number to 6. Uh, we haven't done that for tags yet, so the issue is still open. I think I just think that person to be this. Yeah. So these were the recent updates. One more thing that I think Lee was talking about in the last call was that we have to increase the space, like make the space between the call out and the categories same as the one we have in between these two. So I think no one has opened an issue for this yet. I'll do that after the call. Right. So there was one thing. There was one issue which Gaurav opened about pagination in blogs or articles. But as much as I know, we have pagination for both. So I don't think he's on the call right now. I asked him to become, but we do have pagination. We have older posts, newer posts, and for articles, if he meant resources, we also have pagination there. So I'm not sure what he meant. Is
Yeah, I'm trying.
Shubhra?
No, he actually Superdeep did send a quick regrets. He did send a quick note to say that he wasn't going to be able to make it. On the last topic that you just had with Gaurav's open issue, there might be some contextual clues in last week's meeting minutes. We talked about a few items in that general area, and I'm trying to recall. So we do have pagination, previous and next, or older and newer. And I think what it might have been is someone might have mentioned a nice to have as like as a set of controls in between the forward and backward arrows, like a set of controls in the middle, just to let people know that you are on page 2 out of 20 or whatever. And if memory serves, that's what the suggestion was. So it's not a critical enhancement, but yeah, I think it's the ellipse in the middle, I think, is the exit. Do you remember by chance?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, well, let's just say that that's what it was. It sounds good. I think that's what that's small. See the ASCII art, that diagram, and I'm pretty sure. No, I have no idea who wrote that. I was going to say it was me. Look how pretty it is with the little arrows and the. It must have been me. It had to have been. Right? Anyway, it's probably just a nice to have. I mean, so I don't know if we already have that UX paradigm, like the controls in the center somewhere else, easy, maybe easy enough to replicate.
Like this
Oh,
on the articles.
I wonder who did that. That looks that's pretty good. There's this, yeah. There's this girl around the project who's been doing some good work, and it's. Yeah. Just you can't help. I mean, the problem is Deborah Priya has done so much. It's just hard for her not to point out some of her work. Nice. Hey, by the way, so just that's so for those that are on the call right now, that's potentially something for any one of you to pick up if you want to. It's one of these types of issues. So the issue that we're currently talking about is adding pagination at the bottom of blog posts. And there's prior art for that, or there's an example of how to do that already. So this is one of those issues that it's only a nice to have thing, which means it's not critical, which means if you make an attempt and fail, it doesn't really matter a ton. It's also one of those issues where there's a prior example of what it is. And so it's easy enough to sort of use that and copy and go forth. So this is one of the easier issues. It might sound difficult. We're trying to figure out the number of pages and then identify what page the user is on out of the total index of all of them. But this is one of the more forgiving places to get started. So if you're on the call, haven't started on an issue before on this site and you're wanting to, it doesn't get much better than this one. So that that in some respects is aimed at like Sufyan, or other folks who haven't gotten a chance to get their hands dirty. So Sufyan, have you been on a call before? Is this your first time on this meeting? It's good to have you. There's this little, Sufyan, I don't know if you can see it, there's this little microphone icon and it's red and has a slash through it. You have to click it to then be able to speak.
Yes, I know that. This
Okay.
is my first call, so I'm very new to this. So I had attended that initial meeting in which they gave the introduction or something. So yeah, I can pick up something. I know React, so and I have done some work on pagination as well. So what do you want me to do?
I don't know, we just explained. So that's great, man. I was being sarcastic with you. I'm glad that you found the mute button. What do we want you to do? The thing that we just explained, go to the blogs page and put in between the previous and next, put controls in the middle to let people know that they're on page 1 of 12, and let them nav by clicking on 2 or like jumping ahead. Now, if there's 100 pages, you're not going to be able to list all 100 hyperlinks for every single page. So at some point, you need to be able to say page 1 ... of 95. And maybe there's no controls that people can actually jump to. A lot of times what you'll see is it'll be like page 1 of 95, but it'll say page 1, comma 2, comma 3, ... 95, comma 96, comma 97, and that's it. Like it'll give the user a little bit of the ability to jump. Obviously, you can't show all 100 hyperlinks. Does that make sense? You said you worked on pagination before, so I assume you kind of have a sense of, how to let people control pages.
Yes, but it was just like for a small project that I was working on.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, this is a good one to jump into. Hard to go wrong.
Yeah, I'll try.
Nice. Yeah, so the other call that you'd gotten a chance to introduce yourself on, that was the newcomers call, maybe?
Yes.
Oh, great. Perfect. Okay. Yeah.
So, there are a couple of issues open on the service we started off, but I think we don't have any updates with the 3 of them. So, yeah. If we do not probably get a response from the people working on it, should probably unassign and look at it. So anyone on the call who is willing to volunteer for this, you can go ahead and take a look at these issues. So this one should not be a very difficult one. You have to make the catalog mobile friendly. The other two are, I think, related to design. So we need someone who is good with design or is willing to experiment a little bit. Yeah. I think we also needed the filter to work in a different way than it is now. There's no issue for that yet. So anyone in the call who is willing to give it a try, either of these, you can just go and comment the issue because there's no updates as of now. Does anyone want to volunteer right now?
I can take them.
Which one? Yeah. Do you want to work on the mobile friendly issue?
Yeah.
Cool. So you can just comment over here and assign. Okay.
There's an open PR on this as well, so I think that's abandoned. So you can take a look at that also.
Talking about that, there is another thing, uh, another issue which I opened on service mesh performance to make these card sizes uniform. Now, there was an open PR regarding that. So I think there have been a couple of contributors who've tried to like get this done, but they weren't successful. So you guys can probably give it a shot if you're this. I've converted this PR into a draft because right now it has nothing. So yeah, these are a couple of issues which you can look into. These needs to be. So the issue with the blogs post is basically just because of the length of the description. Like since this one has a big description and a bigger image, that is why it's bigger than the rest of the cards. So and these need to be fixed. These need to be made of the same size.
Yeah, so just a quick comment on the card size for the blog posts. The nice or unlike the card size for the layer 5 member profiles, there's a little more to work with on the blog post cards, and that is that like a choice that can be made on the blog post cards is the small introductory text that begins to, that's a summary of the post, is that that it's possible to specify a maximum length, character length. And I forget the CSS property that will like auto add an ellipse. There's
Text overflow.
is it text overflow? Wow, that sounds so simple. Okay, that actually wasn't, I actually couldn't remember, that wasn't me being sarcastic. And normally it's me being an arse, but that wasn't. Okay.
Yeah, that could be done. But isn't the point of this like to show readers what the blog is about? So if you're adding a list, it's the point of having it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah. So you do, ideally you do show a bit of intro text, and maybe you don't do the thing I was just talking about with the text overflow and the ellipse. I was, yeah, yeah. For the most part, I was just sort of adding commentary just to say like, oh, there's a couple of more things to work with here. But yeah, one of the things that's a bit bothersome about cards like this is the inconsistency of the banner image or the hero image for each individual post. Often those are not necessarily uniform, and that adds to the effect that adds to the challenge as well.
Yeah, but we can do something like this. Like over here on the layer 5 page as well. The images are different size, but we make it the same size of the cards.
Yeah.
So I think the problem which people over here are facing is like they start the issue thinking that it will be a small update, but I think it requires some changes like to fit the images, stuff like that. So that makes it more complicated, I guess. This one, I don't know. I think it should be fixed by giving it a min height. Like it doesn't look that difficult since there are no images involved this way. This might need some work to get the images like like fit it to the same size.
Yeah, yeah. I'll say this again because I don't think it's always obvious as we're going through this, is that a lot of times the discussions that we're having are aimed at trying to be helpful for other people that are on the call to think through approaching one of the issues and how you might do it. And so some of the back and forth that we're having right now, it's actually for Aksit and Raj and Sufyan and Etain and so again, like if any of these issues interest you, don't hesitate to volunteer. Don't hesitate to jump on one or 12.
Okay. I think I'll go for that. I'll go for the card, making it uniform.
Right? I didn't understand your question.
What I said, I would like to jump on this particular issue, making the card sizes uniform on the sides.
Oh, okay, sure. So, like I said, this might need some work. So, if you find a fix for this one, you can just send in a PR and then take this. These are separate sections, or you can do it with the same PR. It's up to you. Just whatever is comfortable.
Okay, fine.
Right. Raj, you wanted to discuss something about the discuss application. You want to go now?
So I have 3 questions. The first is about what do we mean by Slack automation feature, which is mentioned on web meeting minutes.
I think Lee has answered that first.
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of confusion about the way that it's written, but there is so so there is a discussion forum at discuss.layer5.io, which Raj is quite familiar with. So there's a discussion forum, and then that's for the community conversations and questions about the technologies used or questions about the projects. We also have the Slack workspace that is also for collaboration and questions, and so what we've found, the discussion forum is a little bit newer than the Slack workspace, and so a lot of folks who've been here for a while are accustomed to interactions and discussions happening in Slack, and that's great. It also comes at the price of losing the history of information exchanged and questions that have been answered, and so we all try to spend some amount of time on the discussion forum and some amount of time on the Slack workspace, and so most people who come into the community, most of the time they'll come into Slack first, and when they do, that's an opportunity to get them hooked up with a user account on the discussion forum. And so there's automation that runs today. When someone joins the Slack, they'll be sent they'll be sent a welcome message with hopefully a bunch of information about the community and about the projects. They'll be sent a couple of messages. Some things like that will happen. Something else that's easy enough, really rather straightforward to add to that automation is to leverage the discussion forums APIs for users and user accounts, and to just add when someone joins the Slack to go ahead and register a user account for them on the discussion forum, so they're aware of it and can make use of that resource as well. I think the discuss-slack or the Slack-discuss there's in a related to that is the ability, we have a custom Slack bot. That bot is called Community Manager. So all of you can, in Slack, you can go take a look at the Community Manager app or bot and see what it's capable of. Today, it's capable of, I think, a couple of custom commands. One of those commands is this. I think it's like slash in Slack. If you were to type into the text field, the message field, / I think it's post. I think it'll let you type in a message in Slack and have it posted on the discussion forum. So once the automation is in place for creating new user accounts, it might be the case that there's the occasional need to create a new user account ad hoc. So there could be a new / command for doing that as a second step after the initial automation is done. So yeah, I think that's what the discussion was on.
Okay, so in short, you are asking for the Slack bot to create an account for users who join Slack workspace.
Yeah, that's about right. There's a small technicality in what you had said. Like, in the essence of what you said is correct. The slight tweak is that like technically behind the scenes, it wouldn't be, well, maybe, yeah. It's likely not the Slack bot itself that would create the new user account. But in essence, yes, that's what you'd said. So Meshmate Nikhil Lada is familiar with the automation tooling that might be used behind the scenes. And so he's a good one to kind of expand on what that might be.
So, adding to that part, I did a bit of research to use the Slack bot to create a new user. So, first thing is we would require a token to be registered in the Slack bot when it would be having, like, Discuss has its own APIs, and on doing that post API call, it requires some data to be passed on to it. So even if the user, so there are two things. First one being, will the registration be done by one of the community managers, or will the user be doing it on its own?
Probably in this case, it would be the notion that there's a service account or a robot account that it would be the token of that account that can be used by by Make or by Integromat. Like, if we take those credentials, load up those credentials, then the automation can use that generic service accounts token. And so I kind of confused. There's sort of two steps to this. One is just the robotic machine-to-machine automation of just when someone joins Slack, go ahead and create them a new account on Discuss. And that's a full step unto its own and a complete piece of work. Should, for whatever reason, a community manager need to or desire to, on an ad hoc basis, register a Slack user with a new Discuss account, well, that same automation could be taken advantage of, but just invoked differently, rather than being invoked from polling of the Slack workspace for new users. That basically the same automation would be invoked from a custom slash command. This second custom slash command is not nearly as important as the first bit of automation for creating accounts as a new user joins Slack.
Okay, so that new user registration would be done via Integromat, right?
Right.
Okay. Like we could just add another, like in the existing scenario, we could add another cell that would do that registration in part of Discuss. Because ultimately we are fetching the email ID when the user registers. We could just use that same email ID to create the Discuss account.
Totally. Totally.
Okay. Okay. In that sense, if we are using Integromat, then I think it would be easier because I tried on my like personal workspace to use create a Slack bot for Discuss invitation, but there were some limitations like providing data. As in case of slash commands, what I saw is we could at max provide one argument at max, apart from the slash command that we are using. So that won't be having all the data that is required to create a Discuss account.
Oh, got you. Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing. Even with, so yeah, if that second step were to be worked on, the the approach that I would suggest is that a custom slash command were to be identified, like uh, whatever it was called. Uh, let's say that it was discourse, just or discuss slash discuss, and then that to use the command, you would put at the name of the user, like the ID of the user, and the endpoint that would be invoked behind that command would actually just be the same or another integromat scenario within side of which it would basically perform the same operations. It might have to have a slightly different, it might be slightly different based on the fact that it was being initiated from a different direction. But
Oh,
that way
okay.
it can take yeah.
So now I got okay. So previously I was looking into a different direction. Like I was only wondering if we would be using something like slash discuss space invite, and that would automatically get an invite link. But yeah, even using this method, yeah, I think that would be possible because in that case, that scenario would automatically pick up the details of the user from the Slack.
Nice.
And also, Raj, how is the leaderboards coming? Any tips on that?
Can you please repeat your question again?
How is the discussed leaderboards coming along? Do you have any updates on that?
Yep. I've set up discourse on my Ubuntu machine last week. I tinkered with a bit. Yep. So I have some questions regarding the discourse. So right now we need to build or generate a rank to display top 5 or top 10 members. So while looking at the API docs, I didn't find any API endpoints which have pre-generated rank from the uh, this involved activity of the members. So what's your point on that?
I think Aditya, do you want to maybe share? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, you guys are sharing the exact screen. I was gonna. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. So what was the confusion again?
How are we going to generate ranks from the discourse API data we are going to have?
So I think based on the last discussion, Kunal had certain parameters in mind, like what we were supposed to use to generate the ranks. And all the information is here, like it's already available. So
Is the ranking system currently inbuilt in Discuss not up to the mark of our craft? Like it does what we already require?
It have all the data, it have all of the filters, but how do we know, which who is most active member in the committee? On which basis are we going to, provide him some badges or something?
So the most number of days visited by someone would indicate that they are the most active, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Like you can see right over here, right? It's already ranked. Like this table is ranked on the basis of who has received the most number of hearts. Lee has won the most number of hearts, so that's why he's on the top. So yeah.
So, which means this thing works for us.
Yeah, if the I was not on the meeting where we discussed this. So if there's an API which already has all this data, then yeah, we just rank it on the basis that we already have it. Like most number of hearts is already here, and then if you are saying who is the most active, then we just do it on the basis of the days visited. So the most number of days visited is the person who has been the most active in the span of a month. Mhm.
So if we already have the leaderboard, what we are going to make?
So this is probably only visible to admins, right? This is not. I'm not sure, Nikhil. This is only for admins, right?
No, this is visible to everyone, but I think we needed a leaderboard on the whole page, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we need
yeah,
to.
leaderboard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
leaderboard.
we just need to get the first 5 people from the API data and show their ranking here.
Yep, that's in essence. Yep. I don't think you guys are not. You guys, yeah, I'll give you $100 if you do it. You're not going to be successful. Like, I don't know how many times we talked about this. Like, yeah, it's the data. It's so instead of it being about hearts, having it be about the total number of solutions provided. So that's a bit meaningful, and it's harder earned. It's meaningful. It's helpful to people when you provide a solution, and those that are doing it deserve to be recognized. There's room for a small widget to show, the top 10, the top 5 people who've provided solutions over the last 30 rolling days.
Okay.
I think we've covered everything today. Anyone else has anything else they want to discuss? It's slightly before time. So yeah. So, good time. Okay then. Thank you for joining. See you all next week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Devapriya.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.